Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Fortified Life podcast, where we are passionate about building a dependency on Jesus in the marketplace. I'm your host, Jason Davis, aka Mr. Fortify. Every week, we have the opportunity to bring on authors, speakers, coaches, people that are also passionate about putting God back in business. Today's episode will be part of our tools and resources series. And folks, I'm really excited because our guest today is going to touch on a topic, and he's got a wonderful book resource. We're going to be talking about networking today. So, folks, welcome to the Fortified Life podcast. Ricky Steele, he's an author, he's a speaker, and he is a servant at heart. Ricky, welcome to the Fortified Life.
Thank you, Jason. It's an honor and a privilege to be here. Go Jackets.
Yes, go Jackets. We were talking offline. A lot of crossover in our lives. Certainly, and the Yellow Jackets are part of that. Ricky, as today, you've written a book, The Heart of Networking. I've got it up here, and folks, this is actually the third edition that Ricky has written, and we'll dive more into that. But Ricky, just when you think about this topic, let's just set the table for the folks listening. A lot of people approach networking with a lot of different thoughts. Let's just say that there's different styles. You've got the speed networking, you've got the hey, let's go down and have coffee. And so we've seen networking take a lot of different shapes and forms over the years. But Ricky, just as a foundation, why this topic? Why does it burn so deeply within your heart?
Well, if you go back to at least for us, our faith walk, Jesus met with a bunch of fishermen and they used their nets and they cast their nets. And so they were networking every single day to bring in. But the same thing occurred when they went out in the community. They created relationships. They dealt with people one on one and tried to meet them where their needs were. And as a result, the gospel exploded and now it's known across the universe. But to me, a lot of people think networking is a dirty word, and I'll tell people either about networking or I'll ask them during a networking event, and they'll turn around and say, "Oh, I don't network. That's horrible. That's salesy and it's self-centeredness and this, that, and the other." And I said, "Yes, I certainly can be, but that's not the way I see networking. I see networking as an opportunity to build a new relationship with someone that you didn't already know. And the most important part of that equation is to find out as much as you can about that individual so you can find a way to serve them. What are their needs? If you can meet the needs of someone else, and it may have nothing to do with the product or service that you're selling, and it comes back to you. If you give expecting something in return, that's not a gift. That's a bribe or a payoff for some future benefit. But when
Wow.
you give expecting nothing in return, you may get nothing in return, but that's all right. You did you did a solid for somebody. You helped somebody along the way. But more often than not, somewhere down the road, call it good karma, call it just casting your bread upon water. But if you do that often enough, you will see the benefit. Sometimes I've seen things happen 1, 2, 5 years after some event where I might have played a little part in something happening, and 5 years later, something beautiful happens that I could not have created if I laid awake at night every single night trying to figure out a way to manipulate it into happening. It happened because of something that happened 5 years earlier, and there's 1,000 stories along those lines.
Ricky, I love that. And right there at the end, I think of a boomerang. You throw it, and sometimes, especially Ricky, in 2025, where everybody wants everything right now, sometimes these things don't happen till weeks, months, and years later. So I love what you said there is you just don't know when some of these things come back into play. But when it does, just God has a way of divinely orchestrating. And you just never know how impactful it can be. So I love how you talked about bringing the focus to serving and don't worry about whether or not you're going to get something in return. Maybe, just maybe, it was about you met a really awesome person today. And every human is uniquely interesting. And so why not just sit down and be with the person in front of you. So I love that, Ricky. Ricky, with the third edition, this came out after the pandemic. So when we think about networking, because the pandemic kind of reshaped a lot of things in the marketplace and the workplace in general, how did the shift from in person to virtual change how people build trust? What did you see coming out of the pandemic? And then the fact that this third edition was a post pandemic book.
Well, the pandemic changed everything as far as
Mm.
network is concerned. I didn't know what to do with myself for a good bit of time. I've been known to leave my house at 6 o'clock in the morning and get home at 10 o'clock at night after having 9 meetings here, there, and yonder with 9 different folks or 9 different groups or this, that, and the other. So all of a sudden, I found myself locked into my office in my house and trying to figure out how best to help others or how best to sell products and services because I have been a salesperson my entire life. My dad was a salesperson. My granddad was a salesperson, always being entrepreneurs. So it was a great adjustment. What I did find over a period of time, not the first day by any stretch of the imagination, but I did find there's ways through Zoom and now the Microsoft product Teams. A lot of videos were done during that time. I found groups that associations and industry organizations that I've been involved in started doing group meetings online. And that was a blessing because some of these people, I'm a very touchy-feely person. Whether you're man, woman, child, it doesn't make a difference. If I've known you very long, the handshake is something that I don't know anything about. It's a hug and a kiss on the cheek and just some warm greeting. I wasn't getting any of that, and I was kind of lost without it. But being able to see friends and associates' faces again and hear them speak verbally with being able to see their expressions was a great blessing. So that helped a great deal. And then as we started moving out of it and wearing masks to go out in public, that changed a bit because again, we weren't hugging and kissing each other on the cheeks. We were shaking hands and then grabbing a bottle of antiseptic to clean our hands as quickly as possible because nobody wanted to get sick because tragically millions of people died as a result of that horrible pandemic. But it was different, and I'm glad it's over with, and hope to the good Lord we never have to go through that again. But it was a change of pace. But what I did find is that through one-on-one conversations, whether it was with video or just audio, everybody still needed to work. Everybody still needed to try to make a living. So I found a lot of opportunities where people were looking for something that perhaps I could help them with. It could have been advice, career advice for folks that were laid off, or it could have been somebody trying to get in touch with someone and they wanted a relationship with someone at Coca-Cola or IBM or NCR, somewhere where I might have had some relationships. When they called, then I was able to open a few doors along the way. And so not only was it a great blessing and a lot of joy in the process, but it helped them accomplish what they were doing. So it was different, but it's still about people. From what I understand, the only person I've got to have a deep relationship with is another human being. I do love my dog and some of the things that we have in front of us, but it's the human connection that is what makes our life unique. And so being able to communicate and talk to folks one on one, that was a game changer. And to be able to continue that I thought it was very beneficial. Talked to a lot of people, and everyone's had a different take on how the pandemic affected their business and their career. But when it was all said and done, it slowed me down, but it did not shut me down.
I like that, Ricky. Slowed down, but not shut down. And you're right. We had to reinvent for a lot of folks how we communicated with people. And thank goodness for technology, which is where I wanted to take things today, Ricky, is we live in such a technology driven world. And this is a unique time in the marketplace, Ricky, where we've got multiple age groups. We've got the boomers, we've got Gen X, we've got the millennials like myself, we've got Gen Z, and now we got Gen Alpha. They're coming. And so one of the things that bridges the gap with all those people in the marketplace at the same time is technology. So Ricky, I'm gonna take you on a trip with tech here. And this I just want you to give your opinion on how networking has influenced. So of course we go all the way back. We got the radio, we had the television, then we had the onset of the internet, and now here comes AI. And so with all of that, you talked about maintaining the connection. For you, you would have seen all of these different shifts in tech. With things still being about the connection, how have you seen kind of all of those get weaved into the networking process? We've got people with digital business cards now. We've got the people can, hey, grab your number, tap the phone. Has that added to the connection experience? What's your opinion on that?
I'm a face-to-face, eyeball-to-eyeball connection type person, and that's the way that I enjoy it best. And I just say I set a record one day at a restaurant, sitting down at 6:15 in the morning and not leaving the restaurant until 3:15 in the afternoon. After
Wow.
6 or 7, breakfast, lunch, coffee, breakfast, whatever, hot fudge sundae in the afternoon or what have you. So that's how I get my giggles and joy out of life. But the iteration and now AI, I'm just digging into it every day. I'm having a lot of fun with it, and I'm learning some things and being able to scope out some things that I tell people often that if I had the tools today that 25, 30 years ago when I started my sales and marketing career, I wouldn't be here today. I'd be at the
Mm,
beach with a umbrella drink or something and staring at the horizon because it's been such a game changer. Things that used to take me 4, 5, 6 meetings to understand about someone or to know what their needs are or what's important to them, I can now find out in 5 minutes. I know more about some of my friends than their mom or daddy ever knew about them because
mm,
they're posting it on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, or X, whatever they call it now, Instagram, and every other platform known to man. So for me, as being someone who likes to get personal, I like to know about your mama, where you were born, you're a Georgia Tech Yellow Jacket, you play football at Georgia Tech. The more I know about you gives me more of an opportunity to figure out how to serve you better.
yeah.
Who do I know that graduated from Georgia Tech that has an opportunity that would be beneficial to you? Or conversely, who do I know that went to Georgia Tech or is a Georgia Tech fan that could be served by you? So it's always trying to figure out how to make a connection, and having that information has been very helpful. I'm not a great technologist, but I love to use technology, especially around music because I'm a music buff. And I've got albums, Otis Redding Live in Europe from about 1968. I had it a record, I had it on a cassette, I had it on an 8-track tape, I have it on a CD, and now I've got it on my computer. And I also have it on Apple Music so I can listen to it in the car. So again, that whole iteration of how it's changed has improved the process. And I think that's the same thing with networking. The more tools we have, the more we can get to know. Now, is the best way to get to know someone one on one? No question about it. But I believe that if I'm willing to make a connection and I want to make a connection and connect with someone, and I think I've got a couple examples of this in the last book,
Mm,
but I've got to invest. Everybody wants to make a withdrawal, but nobody wants to make a deposit. To
mm,
me, it's the deposits we make that compound interest and more things happen. Before I go into a meeting, for example, before you and I had breakfast the other day, I probably spent 30, 45 minutes trying to get to know everything I could about you. So we sat down, I didn't have to say, where are you from? Where'd you go to school? I already knew all that information. So our conversation flowed. We found out some deeper things about each other as we got deeper and deeper into the conversation. But to me, if you're not willing to invest at least an hour into any meeting you're going into, then you're not committed to the process. You're not committed to building deep relationships. Now, one on one, I could bump into somebody at a cocktail party or a ball game or here, there, and yonder and dig a little bit deep. And then at some point, we're going to set up a time for having a cup of coffee or a glass of wine or a lunch or whatever. And then I probably will do some more research before that happens. But it's a process. But if I know a lot of people that say, Ricky, I'm not afraid of hard work, and I realize when somebody tells me that they've never really done any. Hard work is just that. If you're not willing to admit to it, it's networking. It's not net sleeping. It's not net laying around. It's not net playing on the computer. It's networking. So if you're not willing to work, you're not going to be very good at networking. But the investment is compound interest. If you invest in your network and in the relationships of those around you, from your next door neighbor to your boss to anybody, you'll find that the return on the investment is going to be much greater than you invested. It's compound interest. And so anyway, I could go on and on about this because to me, relationships is the joy of living eyeball to eyeball with another human being, getting to know them and what makes them tick and what it causes them pain, but also causes them joy. That's what life is all about.
Ricky, what you just described, I love it. You're getting me fired up as you were talking. You described the process of becoming a billionaire of relationships, that compound interest, taking the time, energy, connection, like you said, networking, not net sleeping. Now, folks, you heard it here first on the Fortified Life. Ricky may get that trademark tomorrow. So networking, not net sleeping. I like that. I'll remember that one for years to come, Ricky. But man, yeah, a lot of times people think about being rich and wealthy and it's always about money. But Ricky, it's been my experience, even with the short time that we've spent together, folks that are able to walk, and I've seen this, Ricky. I know without saying his name, that he knows it's a funny story. There's a gentleman that I know where every time I'd probably talk to him a few times a year. Ricky, I kid you not. If I say I'm coming back from vacation or I went to this conference, he knows somebody. And I'm talking about all anywhere. Oh man, I went to New York. I went to Hawaii. And this guy just has, and I'm like, that is unbelievable. And it's because he's a billionaire of relationships. There's not a stream of influence in the church world, business world, nonprofit, sports, anything. He could, if you said you're coming back from Italy, he'll be like, oh, yeah, that reminds me. Unbelievable. And that's really what you're saying, Ricky, to me. If somebody can get you an introduction because they've done the work. And so they have these deep relationships with a lot of people of influence. I just think it's not highlighted enough. So thank you for breaking that down, Ricky, and reminding, listen, it's not just about material wealth, but wealthy relationships. That's good.
The
That's
kingdom
good,
of
Rick.
God is not meat nor drink, but righteousness, peace, and joy. And some of the wealthiest people I know are the poorest people that I know and the most miserable people that I know. Being wealthy is not a bad thing, but it's how you apply it and how you use it on a day-to-day basis. But I think I'm one of the wealthiest people that I know, and it's not because of the balance of my checking account or CDs or anything in the world. It's the fact that I literally have thousands of people that I believe I could call today if I was in a jam and say, "Could you help me?" I think there's probably 1,000 people out there or more that know if they got into a bind and they call me today, I would be over at their house this afternoon or at their office trying to figure out a way to help them do that. That to me is where joy is. We're only going to be on this earth for a certain time. We're all going to leave this planet at some point. I don't care how important you are, how famous you are, how many times your name's been in the newspaper. Generally, after you pass away, it's not going to be too long before 90% of the people forget you ever existed. But the ones that you touched personally and intimately, they're going to remember you for a long time. And that's going to be your legacy through your friends, your family, the folks you touched with your faith life. That's your legacy. You know, not everybody's going to have $100 million to buy a building or dedicate a building or donate like all the billionaires are doing, where they're giving 70, 80% of their net worth away before they die. That's all very good, and God bless them. I'm glad they're doing that. But for most of us ordinary folks, what we have to give more than anything else is ourselves. And it's a gift that everyone needs. Everyone wants to be in relationship. Even the hardest people in the world, when you break them down at some point, they have a need to be touched by somebody else. And that to me is where I think that's the joy of living. Someone looking you in the eye and saying, you made a difference in my life. That is, gosh, that's as good as it gets.
Love it, Ricky. You know, Ricky, keeping that definition of networking going, networking. Part of working is listening. And I know you've got a really cool story out of the book that kind of sets up a joke that we were talking about before we got started. To tell that story for everyone and the importance of when you're meeting people, what's the impact of you listening or not? I'll let you tell it. I'm not going to tell it.
We have two ears and one mouth. We should use them proportionately. If I walk away from someone and they know 3 times more about me than I know about them, then I failed that opportunity. I want to know 3 times more about them than they ever hear about me. But a lot of people go through life trying to figure out a way to score something or get something, and they want to just tell you about the history of mankind. It's hard to build a relationship with a person like that. A lot of times when you meet someone, you don't really meet them. You don't really talk to them. You're having a conversation, but their eyes are darting around the room looking at, is there someone more important? Is there someone I need to go talk to?
Mm.
They're thinking about the last deal or they're contemplating their next deal. They are not in the moment with you. It reminds me of the story of the pastor who was very busy, had a hectic schedule one day, and he's sitting in his office and his assistant comes in and says, Pastor, there's a young man out in the lobby who wants to talk to you. He wants you to pray with him. Do you have time? And he said, I don't have time. I don't know how to, I've got 100 things going on. And she says, he seems really insistent. He said, just send him in. The young man comes in and he says, how can I help you, young man? He says, I'd like for you to pray for my hearing. The pastor never asked a follow-up question, never really dug into the situation, but he immediately laid his hands on the young man's head, anointed his head with oil, prayed the prayer of faith, called the heaven to come down and the Holy Spirit, the whole 9 yards. He did everything he could in about 45 seconds, maybe a minute, and said, amen. And he looked at the young man and said, son, how was your hearing? He said, Pastor, I'm not sure. It's not until next Tuesday. He missed the point. I think so many people miss the point because they really weren't listening. They were there, but in reality, they weren't there. Their body was there, but their mind and their heart and their spirit was somewhere else. They're not going to be good networkers. They're not going to really be good friends. They're not really going to be good spouses. They're not really going to be good employees. You got to be in the moment and you got to be there for others.
So good, Ricky. That story, that tickled me. I wanted the listeners to hear that. And plus, that's a type of story that will resonate as a reminder that when you're with the person in front of you, don't worry about what else is going on. The most important person in front of you, or the most important person is the person in front of you. And you just don't know how it might even lead. There's countless stories, Ricky, where I've been in a big event and I talked to one person and I spent time with them. And oh, wow, you talked to that person for 10 minutes. There's been several cases, Ricky, where I spent time with just the one person and they ended up knowing 4 or 5 other people that if I had been so focused on, oh, let me try to talk to them. I spent time 10 minutes with one person at a big event and they said, hey, let's go meet someone. And I went, wow, that was somebody that I was eyeing earlier in the night. But if I hadn't been present with the person in front of me, so folks, you just don't know. You really don't. But listening, because as Ricky has stated, the joy of life, connecting with another human being. My goodness.
Good as it
Yeah.
gets.
Yeah. Ricky, this third edition was personal, deeply personal for you. And one of the things that you did is you dusted off the stories and experiences that you've had in your life. And you also asked permission for people to be included in the book. What made this final edition so different where you actually wanted to have the names mentioned and make it more deeply personal? What was the thought process around doing that for this last edition of the book?
I've had an interesting life, needless to say, and I've been very blessed to experience some things that just somebody with my background, whether it be education or where I was raised or this, that, and the other, should have never experienced. I've been extremely blessed and I'm very grateful, but I've also had some terrible tragedies in my life. And in October the 10th of 2017, we lost our 33-year-old son. He was bipolar with extreme anxiety. He was a star tennis player, star student. He had everything going for him, won tennis tournaments all over the Southeast. Just a joy to be around, one of the sweetest person, and loved music like I do. We talked about every music group there ever was. but he struggled and struggled. And that was a real, when he passed, was a real horrific experience, to say the least. And so I knew that coming through COVID and the world changing, that I wanted to tell some personal stories. All life is about telling stories. If you go to the Bible, it's just a selection of stories, things that happened along the way and how it affected people. The greatest public speakers I've ever heard never get up and beat you to death with an hour and a half worth of facts. They tell 4 stories. Each one of them has a point, and they resonate with you forever. That's what I wanted to do, is tell some stories. So I wrote the book and told stories about friends of mine and colleagues and this, that, and the other. And then I sent each of them what I had written. And I said, this is my 3rd and final book, and this is our story. First, if you don't like the story, then it won't be in the book. If you like the story and you'd like to keep it 3rd person, I can say, I got a friend that we did this, or I got a colleague or a guy that I know from church or work or whatever, and we'll make it anonymous, but I'll tell the story. Third, if you will allow me, I would love to share your name and how we're intimately related and how this story all came into focus, this, that, and the other. And in every single person, that is what we did, with the exception of one, because it's a gentleman that's been on the front page of every newspaper and a very big name executive around town whose son went through a lot of the same issues my son. And he and I sat down and talked about it, and I gave him what advice I could about the experience and going through it and how to try to help his son the best that he could. And because his son is still living, thankful to the Lord, not that he would ever see my book or ever read it, but if he ever did, we wanted to keep it discreet and anonymous. So that story is not in the book. The story is in the book, but the story is anonymously told. With every other name of those, there's Elizabeth Homeke, a dear client and a friend of mine who called me up one day and took me out to lunch after my son died, and really kept me from probably jumping off a bridge or something. I was so distraught. And she took me out to lunch and hugged and kissed on me and carried on, and really helped give me encouragement and love and empathy and every other thing you need when you're going through a horrible experience like that. There's probably a John Yates story or two, big name, prominent technology attorney in town, who John and I have shared a lot of experiences together over the years. Can you remember? Oh, Dave and Monica Hudson, 2 dear friends, and a story that we shared together. So there's one story after another. And I've really had people that have read the 3rd book and maybe read the 1st or 2nd book who said, by far, I like this book the best. It's got a lot of the same principles and the 7 habits of highly effective networkers and the things that you share when you put public speaking and what have you, but it goes intimately into some really powerful stories. And thanks for including that. So anyway, thanks for bringing that up. It's just life. It's the yin and the yang, and in this world, you're going to have troubles, but he overcame the world. And the only way we become overcomers is to follow his example. But I have wrestled losing my son, long hours, and shed a million tears. And I know that ultimately God is in control, and that he loved my son very much and still does, as he loves me very much. And in reality, the thing that gave me the most comfort is knowing and understanding that God himself lost his own son. He gave his own son and allowed his own son to lose his life for my benefit and for everybody else's in the world. That's given me some encouragement and hope. Still hurts like the dickens. And as we come to August, which was my son's birthday, that's always a horrible moment. And then October, the day that he passed, that's always a horrible moment. But and then most every day of the week, when I hear a song that we used to discuss, or see a tennis match on television, then of course that's Steele. But the gist of it is, it's a very personal book, and one that I hope can be a benefit and encourage others as they're going through their highs and their lows in life. And we're all going to have them.
Well, Ricky, I appreciate your transparency and vulnerability, sharing something difficult like that, and also just the impact that your son had. So I don't take that lightly at all. Ricky, as we get ready to close out, and I think you and I are examples of this, the importance of the generations talking to each other. Ricky, I talk to a lot of folks, and everybody has affinity for their own age group, right? It's easy for boomers to talk to boomers because life was a certain way when you came up. family, society. Same for myself, a millennial. It's real easy. What's the What's a good nugget of wisdom as to the value proposition? Why, hey, come up out of your comfort zone, learn from those older and younger than you, because you just never know the what God can do with that. So just talk about that, Ricky, because you've got relationships with folks older than you, younger than you, same age. Just talk about that.
The average age of most of my friends is deceased. They're
Mm.
dead. The older you get, the more folks that you lose. All kidding aside, the way you stay young is to hang around young folks and learn from them, not only about new technologies, but about new music. I'm into music from the 60s and the 70s, and that's, to me, the crowning music. But I got to learn a little bit more about Post Malone or Jelly Roll or Ed Sheeran or Louis Capaldi, or the list goes on and on of people that are a third of my age, but I'm listening to them now to hear what they have to say and to get their beat. And I even took my daughter a couple of years ago after a Braves game to see Ludacris. Trying to raise the roof a bit. But again, every generation's got something to add. Every generation's got their own take on things. So the more open you can be, and especially with young people, I tell a little joke, I guess it's a joke to some degree, about why I mentor so many. I mentor a lot of young folks. And I left you the other day after breakfast and had lunch with a younger fella that in process of making some introductions for him as well. And I tell folks, they say, why do you mentor so many young folks? And I said, very simple. On the 19th of every single month, I get a Social Security check. I'm about to be 73, and for 5-6 years, I've been getting a Social Security check every month. And if young people are not successful, they're not going to be making deposits in the Social Security system. And if they don't make deposits, I'm not going to get my check. So maybe I'm basically just self-serving, tried to help my own self out. But anyway, that's not really true, but it's a good line. But again, helping the next generation as older people help me. My dad was my largest mentor, and I tell a lot of my dad's stories in the book, but a lot of his friends, Bill Turner, who I think there's a photo in the book about me and Bill Turner, who was a Columbus, Georgia Tech graduate as well, by the way. Anyway, Bill Turner was chairman of the board of Synovus and TSIS and W.C. Bradley. He mentored me from the time I was 11 or 12 years old until he passed. Attended his funeral 6, 7, 8 years ago. He was an iconic figure in Columbus, Georgia. If not for Mr. Turner, I wouldn't be here today. So to me, you got to pay it forward. And Mr. Turner paid it forward. Jimmy Blanchard, another iconic person in Columbus. A lot of these people paid it forward with me. And so how can I not do the same for the younger generation? Everybody's got a story to tell. And the more stories you hear, and not just for folks that all look like me and worship at the same church that I do, or have the same dialect I do, or in the same neighborhood, but a diverse group of people, from folks that are from every ethnic group, religious group, social, whatever the case might be. Having a broad coalition of people that can teach you something will help you become a more rounded human being, in my opinion.
That's good, Ricky. That's a perfect way to close out the episode as well. Folks, The Heart of Networking, third edition. Go out and get a copy. Go out and get 100 copies. Ricky, where can people go out and grab a copy of your book?
It's available on Amazon and the Barnes & Noble websites, but they store the books and they send them from their warehouse. Being a networker and somebody that likes personalization, I created a Shopify store, if you will. And if you order from me, it's not only a little bit less expensive, but I mail it. And so it doesn't cost you any postage. So it saves you a little bit more, but I will personalize every copy. I will write an inscription in every copy, best wishes, God bless you, or whatever, and sign it, and I'll mail it and personalize it. My Shopify page is www.heartofnetworking.net, not .com, but .net, because I'm a networker. So heartofnetworking.net, and I think it's $23. I can't remember exactly what it is, but whatever it is, I think it's $29.95 on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, but get it wherever you like. And you can, if you want to reach out to me and ask me any questions or whatever, you can find me at Ricky@rickysteele.net, Ricky@rickysteele.net. and ask me a question, or if I can give you some advice, I'll help you however I can. And then lastly, at 72 years old, I had been, I think I call myself semi-retired. Basically, I hadn't been working for a while. And about a month and a half, 2 months ago, I joined a guy that I worked with 20 years ago at a great company, fast growing, bunch of smart guys, company called TechStream. And you can get me at ricky.steele@techstream.com. But TechStream is a amazing staffing and consulting firm. And the reason I'm so passionate about working with these guys and serving with them is they have 5 core principles. And a lot of people walk the walk, but they talk the talk, but they don't walk the walk. You walk the walk. And the 5 core values are: 1, passion. That's to me what life's all about. Passion is what separates the ordinary from the extraordinary. Passion makes you extraordinary. And then focus and honesty and growth and family. Those 5 core values are things that speak to my heart, and I think make us a unique company, and why our company continues to get the best places to work in Atlanta and this, that, and the other. So again, if there's a way I can serve you through staffing or consulting, I'd be honored to serve you. And I promise you, I'll outwork a lot of folks. And to me, it's not about providing the service. It's what can I do over and above? What is the value add? How can I make your business more successful? And I've got lots of client stories. I think there's one in the book, a client story about a client that gave me some business, and I turned around and opened a door for them, and they ended up getting a $4 million sale out of it. So I didn't get $4 million out of the entire relationship, and they got $4 million out of one introduction. So that to me is the joy, is to give, to be able to put more back into a company than I ever receive. If I make $1,000, if I can give you 5, then I feel like it was a good relationship. So again, that's that joy of giving and the joy of seeing other people be successful. It's been a real blessing, and thank you very much for inviting me to share with you this morning. And I wish and hope and pray for you continued success in your career and in this podcast, and of course in your book as well. Here it is. Your book, Fortify. I'm enjoying it since I got it the other day. Anyway, many blessings to you, Jason, and thank you very much for this wonderful opportunity.
Absolutely, Ricky. We'll definitely hang out again in the near future. Folks, you heard it from the man himself. We'll have all of Ricky's information in the show notes. You can go grab a copy of The Heart of Networking. We'll also have his email. Reach out to Ricky. He's a billionaire of relationships, and you will get to personally see why. Folks, that's all we've got time for here on the Fortified Life podcast. This, again, has been one of our tools and resources episodes for that series. You know how we leave things. Don't compartmentalize your faith in the marketplace. And from the boardroom to the bathroom, God is with you. We'll see you next time on the Fortified Life podcast.